I'll call the October 23rd Board of Supervisors meeting to order. Mr. Williams is going to lead us in the pledge, and Mr. Norvig is going to lead us in invocation.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Lord, we do ask your blessing over our assembly tonight. We thank you for the tight community that is Powhatan County. We pray for all those who are out there working at this moment, whether they be county staff or just citizens, first responders. Bless their efforts and keep them safe. Help us to deliberate with respect and honor you, and help show us the way to make Powhatan a great place to live that you are proud of. In your name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Mr. Norvig.
Yes, sir.
We'll now move on to item 4, request to postpone, change the order of anything on the agenda tonight. Seeing none, can I get a motion?
So moved. Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the agenda as presented. All in favor? Aye. Those opposed, motion passes 5-0. Now move on to item number 6. Our first public comment period. This is the first of our 2 public comment periods. We invite members of the public to share their thoughts on matters and issues that are germane to county business. If you're here to speak on an item on tonight's agenda that is having a public hearing, you must wait and share your thoughts during the public hearing on each specific item. This is not a forum for political campaigning or promoting a business. Please keep your comments focused on issues and subject matter over which this board has responsibility, and please keep your comments to 3 minutes if you're speaking as an individual, and 5 minutes if you're representing a group. And please, if you could, sign in before or after you speak so we can get your name and address correct for the record. Thank you.
Start the clock, don't scare me. Good evening, Jim Carver. I live at 4245 Steger Creek Drive. Thanks for the opportunity to speak to you tonight. I'm not speaking about anything that's on the agenda. I wanted to address 2 things briefly. First, I'm a co-chair of the Powhatan Leadership Institute course that's going to be run in January through April of 2018. And I wanted to pass along the thanks to the county staff, who's helped us tremendously in planning that course out with logistics and reservations, and we wanted to pass along our thanks to the staff for that. The second thing I wanted to address was something I think is near term. You'll probably start seeing it in November, December timeframe. It's the infamous motel planning that's coming to the county. I know it's working its way through the Planning Commission. I don't know when it's going to, I think their next agenda or next meeting is the 8th of November. I'm not sure if it's on the agenda or not. But I want to go ahead and get some of my thoughts out. My first concern was there didn't seem to be adequate notice to the public, but that word's being spread, and a lot of the public is aware of it now, and so that's good. I think some of you may have heard from the public. I've already relayed some of my thoughts on the motel, but I wanted to at least call your attention to one other item that I think, I don't know if it conflicts or not, but as I was reading through the zoning ordinance this weekend, as I understand it, the request from the developers for rezoning, they're actually trying to rezone from general commercial, I think, to commerce center to support a design. I think that's actually to work to reduce setback from 25 feet to 0 feet on their side yard, which I'm not sure exactly where that is on the land, but that is something to consider. But the other thing I wanted to bring to your attention is, as I understand it, the applicant may have by right permission to develop under the general commercial zoning ordinance, as I understand it. But as I read through the general commercial zoning description, this is how I read it from the 2014 zoning ordinance guide. The purpose of general commercial is to accommodate general commercial development until such time as the land is rezoned to a district designed to achieve the type of urban development called for by land use designations applied to the land by the comprehensive plan. So as I read through that definition of general commercial, it just makes me wonder if, as I read the 2010 comprehensive plan that worked so hard on, the 2017, the word motel is in neither one of those documents. I think that's on purpose, but I'm not the author of the document. I'm not begrudging anybody to do what they need to do with their land. I'm a libertarian. I think it's good, but I would hope that the county would seriously consider, these definitions. It doesn't appear that this aligns with the comprehensive plan of 2010 or 2017. So thanks for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Carver. Just for one point of clarification, right now, the applicant is in planning department. It is not in front of the planning commission at all. Just for the record. Anyone else wishing to speak, please come forward at this time. Seeing none, I'll close the first public comment period. We'll now move on to item 7, the consent agenda. It's a pretty lengthy consent agenda. It's got some appropriations and shifting of monies around within that we've had much discussion on. So does anybody have any questions? If not, can I get a motion to?
Move the consent agenda as presented. Second.
Have a motion and a second, and all in favor of the motion as?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Now move on to item 8, appointments to boards, commissions, and committees. We have 2 appointments to our BZA, Board of Equalization, found on page 73, Mr. from District 1 and District 5, so either one of you can step in at this point.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we appoint Dr. Demetrius Venable of Cosby Road to the Board of Equalization for the 5th District.
I'll second that motion. I'm glad he's chosen to step up and accept the position. It can be a taxing time for somebody. I'm glad that he stepped up. So I will second that motion. I think we'll do them one at a time if that's okay. So any questions on the motion for Mr. Venable as the representative from District 5? All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Mr. Williams?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Buchanan and I spoke yesterday. He's recently had surgery, and he is not going to be able, he feels, to serve going forward. So I'm tasked with coming up with another nominee, and we'll try to do so by the next meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. I know you had talked to me previously Friday that we want to check in with him. I think it's admirable that he served all these years and has done it, but rather than not show up and do a good job, I could expect that Buck would say.
Very commendable on Buck's part.
It is.
He did an outstanding job, although he served with Mr. Tucker back years ago.
Mr. Williams, the requirements of the BOE is that 3 of the people be either developers or, real estate agents or appraisers. We have 3 of those, so you can actually widen your net to go after a layperson for that position.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll look forward to your suggestion in a November meeting. Thank you, Mr. Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We'll now move on to item 9A, old business status report, strategic action plan found on page 79. Ramona, you have any comments? By the way, I apologize. Mr. Voorhees is out of town tonight, and we'll be back later in this week. Actually, I think he's going to take a couple days off and catch his breath. So he's going to be back the first of next week. Ramona's running the meeting, and thank you, Ramona. I should have recognized you earlier.
So there hasn't been a coup?
No, there has not yet that we're aware of. So Ramona, you go ahead with the strategic action plan update.
Yeah, as Mr. Melton mentioned, it's on page 79 in your packet. It just includes revisions mostly to the scheduled completion dates. It's highlighted in yellow in your packet, so the staff and myself are prepared to answer any questions.
Pretty self-explanatory. Again, the update on a monthly basis just keeps us abreast of how things are moving forward. So we thank you for those. Any questions at all? Okay. We'll now move on to another old business item, status report on the bonded project found on page 91. And Ramona, you're going to help this one?
Again, this is updates to the bond projects, and Tom Nolan is here to answer any questions, and myself on any of the projects and the status.
What we want to hear is that they're on budget and on time.
They are.
No questions.
No question. I like it. David, he's on time and on budget, so. It was it was interesting, there was a little bit of comments on what was taking place up with the water tower. And it was interesting, some comments of some people who weren't sure what it was. That water tower is, again, to facilitate the water and fire suppression for the new school, the junior high school, and the bus garage. And we actually have a little bit of future capacity with it as we see fit in the future. So, all right. We'll now move on to page 105, the adoption of the Powhatan County 2018 legislative agenda found on page 105. We talked about this in our workshop when we met with Mr. Senator Sturtevant and Delegate Ware, and then we were to get back with county staff. Ted's put this together for us. I hope you've had a chance to read it. They are listed, and I'll go through them. I won't read every word. One's number one priority, or first priority, I don't call it the number one, broadband affordable access to high-speed internet services. Number two, unfunded mandates, that we do not want any of those. Proffers, we want to get some more clear zoning law to better understand the new legislation around proffers. We'd like to declare Beaumont Juvenile Correctional Facility a surplus and transfer from the Virginia Department of Juvenile Justice and Virginia Building Authority to the County of Powhatan. Number five, we like to entertain mandatory water connections to water and sewer. This, we worked in 2 workshops. This is to allow us to be able to do that. We have to ask the state legislators to do that. And then education funding, fully funding our schools, not just to include SOQ standards, but our full school. And then we asked that road revenue sharing be continued. So any questions or comments on the legislative agenda? Again, we tried to par it down so it wouldn't be wordy and too many priorities. So I thought it was a good job.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I reinforce what you say. We used to turn in legislative agendas that could run as many as 20 items. And the people down there are just as busy as we are, so whether they read 20 items or not is questionable. So I think it's appropriate that we have made every effort to get it down to 7.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Tucker. So I'll make a motion that we adopt the 2018 legislative agenda as presented.
So moved.
A motion and a second. All in favor of the motion as presented?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes 5-0. We'll now move on to new business. We'll do the first new business item is quarterly financial report as of September 30th, 2017, found on page 113 of your packet. And Charlotte, I think you're going to take this for us.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, excuse me. We've quickly completed our first quarter of the fiscal year 18 year. I tried to lay it out the way I did last quarter. As of the third quarter, we should have 75% remaining in the fiscal year for those things that happen as they go along. So our taxes right now, obviously, we're in the middle of collecting our first half of fiscal year 2018 real estate and our second half personal property for 2017. So those tax bills are due November the 5th. So our taxes look a little, the percentages don't look at 75%, they're at 97%. Also, the motor vehicle license are collected at the same time. So that skews some of the numbers. So I just wanted to make a mention of that. All of our other revenues appear to be on target at the 75% at this time, as well as our expenditures. So I stand ready to answer any questions you might have about our first quarter.
Did anybody have any questions?
Charlotte, are we still collecting at 98+%?
Yes, well, yes, we're on 98%. So majority of what we have in our taxes on the report would be any prepaid or delinquent taxes that we would still be collecting on, so.
So thank you for the comments in the columns. It kind of gives us, because I zone right in. If I'm not at 75, I want to understand why I'm not at 75. Either transfers hadn't been made or reimbursements are at the year end or whatever it may be. But those comments help us make sure we're just staying on top of this.
Good.
I see we're a little ahead one thing that we were well ahead on, I guess, was their zoning, planning and zoning fees, building permits, and all others, where we had ahead on that. So hopefully that's a continued trend. Any other questions? Thank you, Charlotte, for that. We'll now move on to item Resolution R 2077, approving an exemption from the subdivision ordinance access requirements for an 18-acre portion of parcel 42-9F. And I think, Brett, you're going to take this. This is found on page 121 of our packet.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Brett Chardine, Director of Community Development. The application you have here, the request you have here is because Colony Construction, they're looking at purchasing the property to move and expand their existing building on Route 60 to this parcel. They would like to go ahead and purchase a portion of this property, the 18 acres. The issue that the subdivision ordinance currently would have is it requires at least 100 feet of public road frontage for C general commercial parcels. And this one with them acquiring the rear of it would not have that currently. They do propose to come in at a later date, apply for a rezoning, rezone it to match their existing plant. So the existing Colony plant is actually adjacent to this parcel, so they would propose to rezone at a future date and have it accessed through that property. So the board can consider such requests for unusual circumstances, and staff has looked at this and find that this is a unique and unusual circumstance. One, this parcel being C general commercial is by far the deepest, longest such parcel, nearly 2,600 feet deep. Most other C general commercial parcels are more like 500 feet deep, so they'd have much more proximity to Route 60 than this would. It's also naturally divided by a creek and wetlands, approximately where they propose to divide it. So that's a natural feature in the middle. And the parcel also has multiple access points. One, deeded access to the east on an adjacent parcel, as well as I mentioned, the contract purchaser owns the property to the west. So again, kind of unusual where you'd have two potential access points. So the EDA, they had their meeting last week. They took a look at this and recommended to the board approval. They found that it's an important type of economic development they believe we would like to see now. And they did, the EDA in talking about that did say if the board finds it useful to have such recommendations, they'd be interested in giving them. If not, they certainly don't want to step on the toes of Planning Commission or anybody else. But again, this case would not go to Planning Commission, so they felt it appropriate to take a look at it and send up a recommendation if you all are interested in that. So staff finds the parcel is uniquely situated to make it eligible for such relief from the 100 feet of public road frontage. That would not give up any of the land use control. They would still come in for a rezoning where the public could have a chance to weigh in, and we can look at things like traffic, noise, lighting, design, landscaping, and then at a future date they would still have to go through the site plan and building permit process. So happy to answer any questions, and I see the applicants in the audience as well if there's any questions for them.
Anybody have questions of staff?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
This sounds like it's eminently common sense decision to do this. Is there a downside that we're not aware of?
I would not see one. Staff has pretty thoroughly tried to look at all the options and the angles, and I would see no downside.
And the EDA, how long did they discuss this?
Maybe 5 or 10 minutes.
Did they ask the same kind of questions?
Or what the other options were,
Right.
and things of that nature.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any other questions of staff? Brett, so again, I think this is a good common sense. The main thing I was concerned with was making sure that it was a type of parcel that would need something like this. 2,600 feet of C, it is the deepest C parcel. It actually is, wow, and the rest of them are 500, 700 feet probably at the most. So I think it makes good zoning, good planning. I think it fits right into the EDA's recommendation. If they were uncomfortable, we can work through those things. But one of the things we've heard constantly, and all our consultants tell us, is it's all about expansion of existing business. This is basically fits into what the EDA has really been working hard on. That's business retention and expansion, and this just helps facilitate that in still with good planning and zoning and the controls that we need. So I'm all in favor of this. Anybody else have any questions? If not,
I just have one comment. I
Wait a
looked at
minute,
the
okay.
site. It's a good fit. To the north, to the west, everything kind of matches up, that this is a good fit, so I'm in favor of this.
Mr. Chairman, you ready for a motion?
absolutely.
I move to approve Resolution R-2017-77.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor of the motion as
Aye.
presented?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, need a roll call.
Oh, I apologize. I moved so
I've
fast.
zoned out for a minute. I'm so used to Mr. Voorhees taking care of that. Nothing.
Marty, you're supposed to kick me under the table when it happens. So we'll go back, and you now can do the roll call.
Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Mr. Tucker.
Aye.
Mr. Nordvig.
Aye.
Mrs. Cabell.
Aye.
Mr. Melton.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you for correcting us, Mr. Latchney. Okay, we'll now move on to, I think everybody's here. Can we we'll move a little bit quicker? We normally do certificates of appreciation and special resolutions at 6:30, but I think we're okay to do them a little. Tom, would be violating any, would be upsetting people if we started a little early?
Well, only if they're waiting for somebody else to come. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, that's.
Well, I see that the wonderful Tim Keneal is here with some of his representatives.
Domestic violence is here.
Domestic violence is here, and I see some people from IT are here. Oh, there's one of them. I'm just kidding, Randy. Yeah, let's do it. So Mr. Tucker is going to handle the two resolutions, but first we'll take a presentation from Resolution R 2017-69, presentation by Mr. Tim Keneal from the State Chairman of the Virginia Association of Parks. So you please come down, sir.
Mr. Chairman, Tim is also a friend of ours from Cumberland County. We work together on the Cobbs Creek Reservoir. Good to have you here, Tim.
Very much appreciated. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the Board of Supervisors and the administration of Powhatan and citizens for allowing me to speak with you this evening. I promise that I'm not here tonight to ask for money, so that's gonna set you at ease real quick. In fact, I'm working to bring more money into Powhatan County. As you said, my name is Tim Keneal, and I represent the VAFP, which is the Virginia Association for Parks. VAFP is a nonprofit 501c3 organization for the respective citizen support groups or friends groups and individual volunteers supporting our 37 Virginia state parks, 62 state natural areas, and the 22 national parks, monuments, and historic sites throughout the Commonwealth. The association advocates for parks at all levels. It also offers free technical advice and assistance for those who wish to form a new support organization. And we conduct semi-annual conferences to include training sessions, networking opportunities for the exchange of ideas that work. Virginia state parks are a critical element of Virginia's travel and tourism infrastructure, contributing to over $224 million annually to state and local economies. Although we've been fortunate enough to experience visitor growth throughout the past few years, the very last few years, the last 2 and 3 years, we've seen double-digit visitor increases throughout our parks. Powhatan State Park experienced 72,883 visitors in 2016, and that was up from 61,996 visitors in 2015. And according to a 2016 economic impact study by the Pamplin School of Business at Virginia Tech, Powhatan State Park contributed over $1.7 million in total visitor spending and $6 million in local economic activity. A much more significant number is the $760,327 spent from non-resident spending. Non-residents are basically folks who don't live within 50 miles of Powhatan County. These are dollars that would not be in Powhatan County if Powhatan State Park did not exist. The good news Interim 2017 numbers are pointing again to a much higher visitation rate. I'm here tonight for two reasons. First, to point out some really, really good results from Powhatan State Park. Hooray, good job. And second, to express my concern to that the General Assembly has not increased budgets for state parks maintenance and personnel to coincide with the increased growth in the park system. We're operating at 2008 funding levels. We have infrastructure like 30 group cabins that were built by the Civilian Conservation Corps at Pocahontas State Park that can't be inhabited. They just won't pass code. We have park managers' homes and assistant managers' homes at Falls Cape State Park that flood every time it storms. And we have bathhouses that are falling apart, boat ramps, and docks in disrepair. Most campgrounds do not offer above 30 amp service, and were constructed in the 60s and just can't accommodate today's huge RVs. The risk going forward is my concern, and that concern is that attendance could start dropping in the near future if parks cannot service today's ever more demanding public. If visitation drops, dollars drops. I don't want dollars to drop, I want dollars to increase. What I'm asking of the Powhatan Board of Supervisors is to support the full funding of Virginia State Parks by the Virginia General Assembly so that Virginia can continue to reap the 12-fold return. I did say 12-fold. For every dollar that the General Assembly appropriates to the Virginia State Park System, the Virginia State Park System returns $13.61 to the state. I'd like to get that kind of money back on my investments. And I want to thank you. Thank you again for allowing me to come and tonight to speak with you. And I appreciate your time and your support.
Thank you. Any questions?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Given that we have already passed our legislative agenda just before this, would a letter, if we entertain your request, would a letter from the Board of Supervisors suffice to our General Assembly members saying we support this?
Absolutely.
Well, the resolution before us tonight is a resolution of support for full funding of Virginia State Parks, and it repeats many of the points that he spoke of. $224 million in state and local economies, 72,833 visitors, up from 61,000. All of those things, and it says that we support and encourage, I guess in a polite word, the full funding of the state parks in the budget. So that resolution we're going to vote on tonight. So, any other questions?
I do. To kind of back up what Carson's saying, so we passed a resolution. Are Delegate Lee Ware and Senator Sturdivant going to be seeing that resolution, or is that something that, is that automatically something we're sending on to them?
I would imagine that this gentleman's going to make sure he gets a signed copy of the resolution that Ted signs and I sign, and he will make sure he personally gets it to both of them. We can also make sure we get it to them. But
I just want
to your
make
point,
sure.
it just doesn't let it sit on a shelf somewhere.
Exactly. I know what Carson means. He wants to address the issue, and signing a resolution doesn't always do that.
Yeah, right.
I have a question, if you don't mind.
Please.
Thank you for the presentation. I've enjoyed many of the state parks in Virginia. It's a great thing to be able to do with your family, especially this time of year. Governor McAuliffe is a huge fan of the state parks, and he set out to visit every single one of them, I think, in the Commonwealth. If he didn't do it, he came darn close. Maybe you know.
I think he finally made it to all 37.
Yeah, I think so. He had to helicopter to a couple of them. But
yeah.
I guess my question is, he's very, very up on the state parks. Has he been trying year over year to increase your funding, and the General Assembly is finding a reason not to, or what's the situation on Richmond Hill?
That's exactly what the situation is.
Okay.
Many of our legislators haven't seen, we've had a tremendous turnover in Richmond. Think about it in the last few years, and may happen again next month. But it's an educational issue, and really the advocacy group that I represent is to go out and just speak, educate folks about the state park systems. I mean, we're very familiar with the recreation opportunities, the camping, the boating, the hiking, historic values, preservation of conservation areas. But most of us don't realize it's business for the state of Virginia. I mean, $224 million is nothing to sneeze at. When the General Assembly is putting in a buck, we're giving back $13.61. That one figure that I gave to you involving Powhatan for the local dollar, or the non-resident dollars, to the state of Virginia, that's a figure over $98 million. So those are $98 million that people are that are spending when they're coming over the borders into Virginia and spending in Virginia. So, you know, it's a profitable business for the state of Virginia. And it's just a matter of education. I believe it, firmly believe that if the legislators are aware of these numbers, that, well, maybe they'll see things a little differently and find that dollar. It's not a dollar drain, it's a positive reinforcement of that dollar.
You just answered my question, because I was going to follow up with what's the disconnect, because I know Governor McAuliffe would sign a bill like that.
In a heartbeat.
You know, so I was wondering where that was. So, and as a reminder to everybody, people don't just go to the state park. They buy gas, they get a Snickers bar, they go out to lunch, they do all those things associated with it too, so.
Yeah, and in Powhatan County, that amounted to about $6 million last year. So, yeah, those are real numbers. So that is why I'm out speaking to boards and city councils and sending these resolutions up to VML-VACO, getting as much attention drawn to it as possible so that we can continue to improve them, because we have a lot of them that are falling apart, unfortunately.
Thank you. And Mr. Chairman, you just mentioned in connection with the other issue that we should be expanding and spinning up the businesses we already have. And here's one that we already have. So, all right. Thank you very much.
Thank you very
Mr. Norvig, for your comments. Any other questions or comments? If not, I'd like to get a motion to approve the resolution.
Move to approve the resolution as requested.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor of the, do a roll call for this one?
Well, technically,
Technically,
the roll
we've
call's
never
for
done a roll
resolution,
call.
but this kind of a resolution, all in favor works, because it's more
Okay.
Wait, did she kick
proclamation
him?
type resolution.
I
She
wanna
didn't
know.
kick it yet.
No? Okay.
Not yet. So, all in favor of the resolution?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, motion passes 5-0. Thank you, Ken, for your presentation.
Thank you very,
All
very
right,
much.
we certainly appreciate all y'all do. We'll now move on to Proclamation 2017-21, recognizing Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Mr. Tucker's going to take this one.
Gentlemen, I think you all know Christine Trotta, who's our domestic violence specialist. That doesn't mean that she specializes in domestic violence. Mr. Chairman, we have a proclamation recognizing Domestic Violence Awareness Month, October of 2017. Whereas domestic violence is a pattern of abusive behavior used by one individual intended to exert power and control over another individual in the context of an intimate or family relationship. And whereas domestic violence is widespread and is devastating to society as a whole, but particularly to women and children. And whereas 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men have been victims of physical violence by an intimate partner within their lifetime. And whereas the impact of domestic violence on individuals, families, and communities is recognized nationally during the month of October. And whereas families are indispensable to a stable society, and they should be a place of support and instill responsibility and values in the next generation. And whereas during the month we honor the courage and strength of victims and survivors and pledge to provide continued support, advocacy, education for those affected by domestic violence, and to empower them and their families to create a life that is safe, healthy, and free of violence. And whereas survivors should have access to the compassion, comfort, and healing they need, therefore there be it proclaimed by the Powhatan County Board of Supervisors that we do recognize October as Domestic Violence Awareness Month and supports the efforts and missions of the Powhatan Department of Social Service Domestic Violence Program in playing an active role to prevent domestic violence, and encourages all Powhatan County residents to promote community support and awareness of this important issue as we work to create a safer environment for all. Mr. Chairman, I'll make that in the form of a motion.
Motion and a second. All in favor of the motion? Aye. Those opposed, motion passes 5-0. Christine, would you like to say anything?
On behalf of Social Services, I just wanted to thank you for your continued support. We have seen an increased number of families come through our program, and so we just appreciate your support of our work and the community. So thank you.
We thank you for all y'all do to meet the needs, because y'all do a wonderful job.
Randy, could we get you and your staff to come up, please? Surprise.
Dan, please come on up.
Mr. Chairman, I have a motion here to make a proclamation congratulating the Information Technology Department of Powhatan on the recent Governor's Technology Award. Whereas annually the governor announces the winning projects at the Commonwealth of Virginia Innovative Technology Symposium, and whereas the Governor's Technology Awards program recognizes public sector IT projects that have improved government service delivery and efficiency, and winners are determined by a panel of government IT experts, and whereas only 17 awards in 9 categories from the state and local governments and education were chosen, and whereas the official Powhatan County website, www.powhatan.gov, was submitted by staff for the Best Citizen Portal category, and whereas on September the 6th, 2017, the Powhatan County IT Department was presented with the 2017 Governor's Technology Award for Best Citizen Portal in a special ceremony with Governor Terry McAuliffe and Secretary of Technology Karen Jackson, and whereas the Governor's office released the following statements. I want to congratulate this year's award winners for their innovation and efforts to increase efficiency in government, said Governor McAuliffe. Every project honored today has used information technology to improve citizen service through metrics including decreased costs, faster response time, or ease of completion. The Commonwealth has a bright future with talented groups like this continuing to improve government through technology. Every year, our Virginia agencies and localities receive national recognition for their innovative use of IT, said Secretary of Technology Karen Jackson. The Governor's Technology Awards give us a statewide view into this valuable work on behalf of our citizens. And whereas the IT Department of Powhatan laid out the following objectives for the website redesign project. The goal of the newly created official Powhatan County website from the early stages was to create an environment in which the citizens of the county could dependably refer for all information regarding county business. We wanted an interactive website that would allow citizens to choose to be updated on subjects of their choice. We wanted a user-friendly website on the back end to allow for quick and easy updating by employees. We wanted a platform to showcase the beauty of our county, but at the same time make an available broad spectrum county information in an easy, concise manner. Therefore, there be it proclaimed that the Powhatan County Board of Supervisors congratulates the Information Technology Department of the county for their hard work and for their determination to ensure the new website was user-friendly and an efficient and easy way to communicate with citizens. Mr. Chairman, I make that in the form of a motion.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor of the motion as presented?
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes 5-0. Randy, would you like to say anything?
Yeah, although IT put in the application and we got a lot of the credit, I just want to point out that it was a total county effort across multiple departments to make our website user-friendly and have good content for the citizens of Powhatan.
Well, I was going to ask you, any other names you'd like to mention besides Dan that helped?
On the core team, Bridget has done a lot of the work. She's sick today. She couldn't make it. And some people that are no longer here, Callie Jackson was on the core team, and Pat Weiler, of course, and,
Perfect.
and Melissa Grabwell.
Thank you. Congratulations. Much deserved.
I have just one thing to add, Mr. Chairman.
Please.
Yeah, there's a little camera up there above the screen that we look at, and the camera can swivel back and forth, and that's what's streaming. I noticed when Dan went up to receive the IT award, he kind of swiveled that thing straight over toward the podium, didn't you? I watched him do it. That was good.
will now move on to, let's see, we have public hearings. Start at 7, so we will not start those early because some of the members of the public would come. We have we could do county attorney comments.
Mr. Chairman, we have a closed session, but
Closed
I think it'll be relatively brief. I think
Let's
we
do
can get
that.
it done before 7.
For those in the public, we're going to go in closed session for exactly 21 minutes, and we're going to come out at 7, and we'll do back for the public hearings. So, all right. Hereby reconvene this regular meeting of the Powhatan County Board of Supervisors, an open meeting, and request the clerk of the board to conduct a roll call certification vote of the supervisors to be included in the minutes of this meeting.
Do you certify to the best of your knowledge that the only matters discussed in the closed meeting were public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion by which the closed meeting was convened were heard, discussed, or considered in the closed meeting just conducted? Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Nordvik?
Aye.
Mrs. Cabell?
Aye.
Mr. Melton?
Aye.
Mr. Tucker?
Aye.
We'll now begin our first of, I don't have to adjourn now because we've got to go. But thank you. It's okay. You want to go home early. We'll now move on to our first public hearing. This is ordinance 2017-29. Brian S. Smith requested amendment to the proffer statements for lot 1 through 5 and lots 8 through 18, found on page 135 of your packet.
This one, the Planning Commission held their public hearing on October 3rd, recommended denial on a 3-1 vote with 1 member absent. With this, where the last amendment we had, as you recall, the applicant we found had not installed the signage for their through road, had an issue with some of the right-of-way not being recorded. So now anytime we get one of these, we are going through and reviewing all of the proffered conditions, inspecting the site to make sure everything that was required with the original rezoning has been complied with before they request relief and going to the lower cash proffer. So this one specifically, we found the through road sign had not been installed. We made them aware of that, and the developer has since gone and put in place that notification sign at the end of the through road to let people know that it could be extended at some point in the future. There was also a landscaping package that was required that had not yet been installed. They did prepare a landscaping plan that would be in compliance with the proffered conditions as well as meeting site distance requirements. They indicated that they would have that installed and planted by October 31st. So with the sign being installed and a landscaping plan being submitted and a timeline given, staff's comfortable with that. We've got a dozen or so, half dozen lots here where if they were to not comply with that, we could find them not in compliance with their zoning and withhold the CO. But again, they've indicated they'll install that in the next week or so. So otherwise, all proffered conditions have been complied with, and staff is comfortable if the board sees fit to recommend approval of this.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions of staff? The applicant is here, but also, so I think the applicant's here, isn't he? I'm not sure. Okay, I thought.
No,
No?
I don't think
Okay,
so.
all right. The applicant's not here, so staff questions.
So say again, what happens if the landscape plan is not put into effect and we go ahead and approve this?
Again, here we have, about a dozen lots or so. So if they came in for building permits or requested a CO and we still hadn't had that done, then we could withhold that, finding that they're not in compliance with their zoning. So we still have some leverage. But again, they've gone out, developed the plan, submitted that, and indicated it should be installed within the next week. So staff's comfortable not holding the case up for that.
Okay. Any other questions of staff? Okay. Not, we'll hold the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on rezoning, ordinance 2017-29, please come forward at this time. Please state your name and record, for the record, please.
My name is Lowell Qualls, and my wife and I, as of this week, are moving into Lot 5. And I just want to say hello. Met the sheriff and one of his men, and it's just great moving out of Chesterfield into Powhatan. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Anyone else wishing to speak, please come forward at this time. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. I will be glad to make a motion. I have been consistent with what I've voted on these. This is a wonderful neighborhood. The houses are rather large. They are very, I think they actually require hardy plank on many of the houses. So I think the value of the homes far outweigh, I think we did a report one time on the break even on a house. So I think these far exceed the break even on that. It is a neighborhood that has struggled along through the economic times, but looks like it has some life going on, and I'm excited to see it move forward. So therefore, I am going to move that we approve ordinance 2017-29 as presented.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any comments or questions?
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to be consistent as you've been in the past, and
That's fine.
I will not be supporting this tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Okay, all in favor of the motion as, excuse me, roll call, please.
Roll call.
Mr. Melton?
Aye.
Mr. Tucker?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
No.
Mr. Nordvig?
No.
Mrs. Cabell?
Aye.
Motion passes 3-2. Thank you. Welcome to the county, by the way. Thank you. We have ordinance 2017-28, amending the Powhatan County Code of Ordinances to amend Chapter 70, Taxation, Article 2, Real Property Tax. And I think Mr. Timberlake's going to take this along with possibly some others.
Good evening. Do we have to read that whole resolution? Or just go through? So you have the resolution in your packet. Basically, this is just some factors probably for the public to make sure they know. This is an optional thing from the state. This is not a mandatory one like the 100% disabled veteran. This is something that the county may do. So voting to do this is a step in recognizing the service of persons killed in action. This will basically do the same thing as the disabled veteran. It will align with the 1 acre plus their dwelling. One other thing to point out, in this current law with the state is that we actually have to calculate a median average house. For this, it does not automatically exempt 100%. So just want to make sure you saw that in the state code. And then the other one is that this one is portable as opposed to the disabled veteran one. If the spouse moves after the veteran has died, they cannot take the exemption with them to a new residence. If they move or remarry is basically what the state code says for disabled veterans. For this law, obviously the spouse is killed in action, so they don't have to worry about that part. But if they move, they can take this, it's portable. They can take it to a new residence, and they'll get exempted by the same new factor of average. I think it's either average or median. I forgot what it's. Average assessed value for single-family dwellings.
So it's not the median? Excuse me, I apologize.
It's not the median. It's
Not
the
median,
average assessed value,
of
correct,
the
for single-family dwellings.
The person's specific residence, or do you take an average?
No, we have to average the whole county and see what that number is, and that's an interesting factor. It'll have to be calculated every year. There's been some discussion about when the General Assembly does what I would call good things in good faith. Sometimes they don't realize what that does for localities. We're not all zoned R2, residential,
Exactly.
so there are some things that we have to put in there, but, I mean, we have tools to deal with it. We just, do our best faith effort to find that number, and then that's, for this exemption, they will be exempted up to that amount. If they have a dwelling that exceeds that, then they'll still be taxed on it.
On the difference.
On the difference, yep. Yes, sir. And the other thing, I was talking to Ramona about it before, you're gonna see in the General Assembly, for the 100% disabled veterans, we've already seen it come through the, basically the legislative group, and it'll be submitted this spring at the General Assembly to include the 100% disabled veterans to be portable as well. I think they're gonna leave the remarry status. If they remarry, the consideration is there's then 2 incomes in the household, so they lose the exemption if they remarry. but the 100% disabled will probably become portable after the first of the year.
So it will be incumbent upon you to determine the average?
We do it every year for the CAFR. I mean, it's not
understand.
hard, yeah. Yes, sir.
So, for instance, we get a report quarterly from Richmond Association of Realtors. It tells us what the average median sales price is for this quarter. We just got it today, matter of fact. And it tells us what the average, high end is and low ends and all those things. Do you throw anything out? I mean, do you?
No,
you
sir.
come to a meeting, you could say you've had 10 homes at $100,000 and.
Right, so again, remember that report you're getting is a sales report.
It is.
This is based on assessed value, which would only be done once every other year currently.
Okay.
Under our standard, we would use those numbers, and it would be that number for the next 2 years.
Okay.
Right, this is assessed, so I don't have to, I hear you, but I don't have to take into consideration, and really can't, don't have to, I can't take into consideration those sales changes that come out monthly and
Well, I'm
do
in
that.
full support of the ordinance. I just don't want to shortchange people.
Right.
And I'm not too sure, maybe that's something I have to work with, get changed at the state level. But,
Right.
I just don't want to shortchange anyone that spouse was lost in the line of service.
Right.
And just because they live in a bigger house, they busted their butts to live in the bigger house, that you're not, and this is the whole intent of the ordinance to me.
Or size of their family. I mean,
Yep.
some requirements require a bigger house. If
Yep,
you've
it
got a
does.
larger family, I mean, they're, again,
And I
General
understand
Assembly
the
takes
purpose
good
behind
faith
it,
steps and.
too, and
Yep.
limiting it, but that's something we'll work on, maybe with the legislators. So. Any other questions of staff, Jamie, or any other comments you have?
No, sir.
I apologize, I didn't want to cut you off.
Full support. Nope.
Okay. All right, we're gonna, Brad, do you want to make your comments now? You want to do it when the public hearing's open, whatever you choose?
Do it now with the public
Okay,
hearing.
I'm gonna now, we'll hold the public hearing on ordinance 2017-28. Anyone wishing to speak, please come forward now.
All right. Sheriff Nunley, and Victim Witness Coordinator with my office, Wendy McClellan. I just wanted to speak in support of this. When Wendy brought it to my attention that it was something that we could possibly do, we thought it was a great idea. Being responsible for the men and women out here in uniform, this is just one more measure of relief we can provide these spouses when their spouse has to make that ultimate sacrifice. But what it also does for the men and women while they're working, it gives them a little bit of a peace of mind. We're not going to make great salaries, so we'll talk about that every year budget. But it's not a career that's known for producing millionaires. So everything that we can get legislated that allows us to take that off our mind when we're out there going through the dark alley or the backyard at 3 o'clock in the morning or in the middle of a fight with two spouses that can't get along. That peace of mind allows us to do our job without thinking twice. It's one of those things that if we know our spouse is going to be taken care of, it's much easier to make that sacrifice than it is if we don't know that. So this would be a nice step in that direction to where we wouldn't have to worry about the home we built with our spouse being lost because of that income. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak at this time, please come forward. I'll close the public hearing. Tom, just for the record, this is not just for deputies or police officers, correct?
No.
This is for
fire and
first
EMS.
responders, EMS, everyone. I just want that to make sure people realize it just wasn't for, although they are, all of them are underpaid, as Brad says, and so this is just a one step forward in that, helping that, if it's just, God forbid, this was ever happen. So.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Yep.
And Tom, maybe you're the one to answer this, I don't know. Is there a possibility of amending this so that we can actually give this benefit after marriage for, let's say, 3 years or 5 years or whatever? Is that a possibility?
No, Jones.
Yeah, I'm
This
not
is-
sure I understand that you talk
Well-
about if the spouse is killed and then they get married.
The surviving spouse
No, the General Assembly puts the strictures on what we can and cannot do, and that's not something we
We'll work on them, Larry.
Okay, and you know what I'm thinking. I don't want to incentivize people to not get married because they'll lose a benefit if they do. I speak from experience. There are people in my family, a previous generation, not my parents, and they did not marry for a number of years because they would have lost a similar benefit. It was insurance. And I don't really want to incentivize that behavior with this law. I'm not sure the General Assembly had that discussion, but a cure for that would be go ahead and let them extend it past that time for, like I said, 3 years, 5 years, or whatever, just kicking it out. You see what I mean, Tom?
I understand.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? If not, I'll make a motion that we approve ordinance 2017-28, amending the Powhatan County Code of Ordinance to amend Chapter 70, Taxation, Article 2.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any questions or comments on the motion?
Mr. Chairman, this is a very, very small, and everybody knows this, measure of our respect and cherishing of the people who stand up for us as a society.
Absolutely. Well said, Mr. Tucker. Okay.
Mr. Melton?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Nordvig?
Aye.
Mrs. Cabell?
Aye.
Mr. Tucker?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Thank you. We'll now move on to ordinance 2017-27, amending and reenacting the provisions of Powhatan County Code, Chapter 80, Water and Wastewater, Article 4, Section 80-112. And I think, Ramona, you're going to take this one for us? Okay.
You'll find the information on page 161 of your packet. Back on June 26th, we held a public hearing to update Section 80 of the Water and Sewer Ordinance. And at that time, the board requested that Section 80-112 not be changed until further investigation was completed regarding the legality of the mandatory connections as it related to the Virginia Code, Section 15.2-2110. We then had a workshop on September 13th, and staff presented information to the board. And they presented one that the county is legally authorized within the service district to require mandatory connection to the water and wastewater infrastructure. And that was because the county has a service district that was adopted by resolution. And the second piece of information we gave was that the county was going to request in the legislative agenda to be added to the list of counties in Virginia, and we actually voted on that tonight to bring that to the legislative session, but we were going to request Section B, subsection B. And that authorizes the county to require mandatory connections outside of the service district. So based on having the legal authority to require mandatory connections within the service district, we added some information to Section 80-112. We added Section C, which addressed residential properties only. The beginning part of that Section 80-112 that we did not change was for commercial properties. And we didn't change that section. We just added the requirement for the residential. So the Section C was for water. We separated into water and sewer. But the purpose of this was to capture new residential development. It wasn't intended to address existing wells or septic systems. It was just to capture the new construction. So I think there was some confusion on the wording in there that we may need to amend the wording just to capture the new residential.
So this would be Section C, which is actually starts on the top of page 163, then goes down to 164, and under C. So it reads, just water. If public water service fronts the property on any side, owner will be required to connect to the water line and pay an applicable connection fees for new construction, or if existing well has been deemed unsafe by the health department. If on the on-site service is greater than 400 feet, the owner will not be required to connect. And then it says sewer, if the public sewer fronts the property on any side, owner will be required to connect the sewer line and pay any applicable connection fees for new construction. If the septic system exists on the property and repairs or upgrades to the system can pass health department certification, owner will not be required to connect. If the on-site service is greater than 400 feet, the owner will not be required to connect. Correct?
That's correct. What we are proposing to do is to end both of those statements after new construction
Okay.
and cross out the rest of those.
I want to be clear
Okay.
that for water, that if there's an existing well on the property, a water system that's repairable or can be replaced, that the homeowner has the option of doing the repair or the replacement versus being required to hook up to public water.
That's correct. They can decide if they want to or if they want to
We
repair.
want to be clear on that. And
So-
just like we do for, on the latter one for sewer, it says if it's repairable or replaceable, then they have the option of either hooking up or repairing or replacing, for example, the drain field, if that went bad or something like that, so that the homeowner can have the decision-making in their domain about which way they want to go, which would, best suit their needs at that time. We're not forcing anybody unless it comes down to that they can't get a well in, or they can't get a water system in, or a septic system that can be approved, by the health department. Then they would have no choice.
So you're okay with ending them, so it would end it at new construction period, and all the other would go away in water, and the new construction period is the way it does, and you remove the other sentences from sewer. Is that what you're?
So
would
you're
read?
just gonna scrap the 400 feet and let it, okay.
So if the water, so,
If it's new construction for residential, you have to hook up. Otherwise, you don't hook up unless, you are able to hook up and it's in your best interest to hook up.
so it would read, if public water services fronts the property on any side, owner will be required to connect to the water line and pay any applicable connection fees for new construction, period. Then the next one will be sewer. If public sewer fronts the property on any side, owner will be required to connect to the sewer line and pay any applicable connection fees for new construction. End of sentence. Tom, pretty clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
All right, hold on, we got to hold a public hearing too. So, okay, we'll now open the public hearing on ordinance 2017-27, amending and reenacting the provisions of the Powhatan County Code, Chapter 80, Water and Sewer, Article 4, Section 80-112. Anyone wishing to speak, please come forward at this time.
Betty Handy, 3171 Judes Ferry Road. And I just have a question. Obviously, I have not studied this ordinance, but is there some provision to charge people more in the future if they decide to connect later than you're going to charge them now? I recall when I lived in Henrico a long time ago, they brought the sewer line through and they said, well, you don't even have to connect, but if you don't pay that fee now, it's going to cost you something like 4 times more if you decide to collect later, which seemed like the reasonable thing to me at the time. We connected because that was the thing to do. But I just wondered if you are providing something in your ordinance that says you got to pay more if you don't do it now.
Thank you, Ms. Hanby. David, if you want to take that,
I'll take a stab at it. I
Go
think
ahead.
we're on the same page. What we've said is that if you're new construction coming into the utility district, you will be required. You're not being given the option. You will hook up.
Yep. And if it's somebody that's currently out there, a homeowner, that chooses to ride it on out and not hook up, and then one day it fails and they have to hook up, if I'm correct, they would pay whatever the market rate is at that time. It could be more expensive or less expensive. I doubt it'd be less expensive, because nothing seems to ever go down, but it would be at the rate that was going on at that time. But you're right, and I remember my dad in Chesterfield deciding to hook up or not hook up based upon what it was going to cost now, what it was going to cost later. So
So we set those rates every year.
Correct, we do.
And they have not increased as long as I've been here, so.
Okay.
Because they're actually based on the Route 60,
But
the
to Ms.
infrastructure.
But to Ms. Andy's point, if somebody chose not to do it now and chose to do it in the future, the rates that we approved for that year would apply.
When they actually did the
Right.
the
Correct.
construction. Correct.
And that's something we look at every year when we set our rates.
Right.
But our intention is clearly, we wanted the people that are living today in their residential home to have the ability, if they want to choose to have the quiet enjoyment of their residence for the rest of their life, that they wouldn't be required to hook up to water and sewer, unless it was, you know, a situation where they couldn't meet health department standards for the septic system or for the well, or for the water supply.
Well, we're not requiring them. With this, we would not be requiring them because we were stopping
not.
this in new construction. But I guess intuitively, if they don't have water and they don't have a sewage system.
You're gonna
then-
connect, and you're in the utility
Well, you either
district.
connect or you won't live there as a.
You won't be living there because your health
It would
department's
be
not going.
uninhabitable.
Yeah.
So.
Why don't we give them the option to hook up for free in year one, 50% off year two, and full price year three, to incentivize people to start hooking up? County makes revenue and they get a break.
I'm not prepared to work on that tonight, Mr. Norby. Got something we want to work on in a workshop. I think it's some good dialogue.
I got a
we can have.
calculator. No,
but-
I'm just kidding.
But wouldn't that be addressed, I'm sorry, Mr.
No,
Chairman.
go ahead.
Yes.
Wouldn't that be addressed when we set the rates per year? We can do that. We can make those adjustments on a per year basis.
Yeah, we could, but, you know, it'll be another board 3 years from now, so,
Well-
you know. And I'm not prepared to fully flesh that out either. I'm just,
We need to know how the users and all too many undetermined things that we would put Ramona on the spot on right now. and
no,
I'm
I
not sure.
understand. And I don't mean to put Ramon on the spot.
Yeah, okay.
She might start kicking this direction, I don't know. But, you know, we rarely, the five of us rarely are able to get together, and it's always in a setting like this, so I
Okay.
thought I'd bring it up now.
So let's make note, Bonnie will make note, and it's something we want to work on before the end of our term. Absolutely, we should roll our sleeves up and have that dialogue. We set our rates again in January, don't we set our rates in every year?
In July.
July, excuse me. So we'll be doing it in budget time. It'd be a great conversation.
Yep, that's fine.
All right. Anyone else wishing to speak on ordinance 2017-27? Please come forward at this time. If not, I'll close the public hearing. I have a motion that we adopt ordinance 2017-27.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, sorry to interrupt. The first motion would be to amend
Okay, I'll amend it. I
subsections
was going to say as a, but go ahead.
But none of that was an emotion, so you actually need a motion to amend those two subsections, striking all the language after the word new construction.
Perfect.
And then the second motion to
All
adopt.
right, I'll
the
make a
remaining
motion, we amend C, I guess it's CI, is that a C1?
CI.
CI, the water section to amend it where it finishes at the, after new construction.
Second.
And that sewer, well, can we do both? And that sewer ends at the end, well, it's already a period, that anything after the period behind new construction would be deleted in section II.
Now you finished?
Yes.
Second.
A motion and a second. I'll second the motion. And we'll now take a roll call vote, I
You don't need a
guess.
roll call on the amendment. You only need a roll call on the final.
All in favor of the motion?
Carson seconded it. You made the motion.
I did. I
You just
apologize.
said you seconded it.
It's been a long day.
Yeah.
Started at
30.
5:30. So we have a motion and a second by Mr. Tucker. All in favor of the motion as presented?
Aye. Aye.
Those opposed? The motion passes 5-0. Now, I'll make a motion, we approve ordinance 2017-27, Chapter 80, Section 80-12, as amended. And I don't need to say all the stuff about public necessity, convenience, general welfare, good zoning practice. See, I am a little bit awake tonight. so-
Second.
We have a motion and a second. So,
Third.
Mr. Melton?
aye.
Mr. Tucker?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Nordvig?
Aye.
Mrs. Cabell?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. We'll now move on to item 13, Our second public comment period. Anyone wishing to speak, please come forward at this time. Seeing none, I'll close the second public comment period. County Attorney comments?
Only comment, I want to apologize that I have to be the stickler for the rules. I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's why we have you come sit on the stage. So, and Ted's not here. Ramona, do you have any comments that Ted sent you?
I
Yep.
just have one, actually.
Okay.
It's my personal interest.
Okay, go ahead.
On, with Public Works. In November, we're going to send out the first fines for strong waste, so you may be hearing from some of the commercial properties. We have tried to stay in touch with all of them. We've sent out multiple notices and tried to email them and stay in contact with them, but you still might hear some negative response.
Maybe Laura can get that point out and you'll get some phone calls. But I think we've been more than, I'll just make my comment, I think we've been communicating, and if we have, and then you know, sometimes those things have to take place. So I guess that was more of a heads up.
Yeah.
Thank you. We now move on to board comments. I have one quick one. There is a public meeting, 5 to 6:30 on Wednesday night at the Company One Firehouse for bridge replacement, both in Mr. Tucker's district on Cartersville Road. It's been in the paper several times. It's on the county website, and then also on Route 13 at Sally Creek in my district. So please encourage anybody you know that may be affected by those two bridge closures to please come to the public meeting, 5 to 6:30, again at Company One Firehouse.
I have a couple.
Okay.
If you're not into bridge, that's a pun. Wednesday also, as you know, I'm chairman of the Regional Substance Abuse Awareness Coalition, and we have actually 3 events going on this week because it's Red Ribbon Week, and it's to draw attention to the ever-increasing problem of opioid addiction and abuse and heroin overdose and abuse, which has been a particular issue in this county. And I think I mentioned last time, a few weeks back, we had 6 overdoses at least that were reported anyway in 1 week. We had 1 death and 1 patient probably permanently disabled. So this is a problem of your neighbors right here where we live. And it's a big, big job, but we are doing everything we can to tackle it. So this week, we are going to be in the high school. I'll be manning a table with another couple volunteers, and we'll be working with the high school students. Also, RSAC is helping to sponsor an event at the Goochland High School. We did this at Powhatan High School last year. We're showing the film Chasing the Dragon, which is a hard-hitting film that addresses this issue. We're also going to have a panel of medical experts there. This event is free. It's again Wednesday from 6 to 8:45, this time at Goochland High School. They're in our Regional Awareness Coalition. There will be a food truck there. There's going to be free popcorn during the movie, and they'll have food for sale as well as bottled water. The last event is Drug Take-Back Day right here in Powhatan at the courthouse Saturday, October 28th. That's from 10 to 2. And you can bring any unused or unwanted medication to the courthouse lobby, and there will be a deputy there. We will, in fact, I'll be there for a little while as well, and so will some other volunteers. We'll have some snacks. We'll have some literature produced by RSAC to pass out on the prevention and treatment of all substance abuses, including tobacco, alcohol, and the harder stuff. So it's a big week. So we've got the high school table, we've got the Chasing the Dragon Wednesday night at Goochland High School, and we've got Drug Take-Back Day on Saturday at the courthouse. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Norvig, for all those comments and what you do.
I have a comment.
Go ahead.
I'd like to invite everybody to an evening with Dr. Robert Holsworth. It's going to be the first in a session, a 3-speaker session of the Powhatan Forum. It's going to be Saturday, November the 4th at 7 p.m. at Powhatan High School. If you're not familiar with Dr. Bob, he is a well-known political analyst around Richmond area and Central Virginia. He's going to examine the context, the candidates, and the issues in the 2017 statewide elections, as well as their impact on public policy here in the state. So tickets are available on eventbrite.com, and they are $10. We hope you all can join us. It's going to be a nice evening.
Thank you. David?
As everybody knows, in Virginia, hunting and fishing are traditions. And just recently, Harrison Carmack, who is the son of Karen and John Carmack in Carson's district, Harrison's 12 years old, and he harvested his first doe hunting with his uncle and his father up in Roanoke. He's a hero.
Great. Any other comments? Okay. None, seeing no other board comments, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So, second.
All in favor of adjournment? Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Do you want to stay, Larry?
No, it's just, please, it's not a second. But it's honest. It's really honest.